World War I was not the first World War. At least, not really. More than 150 years before 1914, there was another war that pulled in the great powers, spread across continents, reshaped empires, redrew maps, and helped set the stage for the American Revolution, British rule in India, and the future collapse of old monarchies. It was called the 7 Years' War. But that name is kind of misleading, because in North America it started before those 7 years. In Europe, it was a fight over Prussia, Austria, and the balance of power. In India, it was a struggle between European trading companies and local rulers. In the Caribbean, it was about sugar islands and naval bases. In North America, it was called the French and Indian War. That's the name I learned about it in school. And on the oceans, it was a war for control of the routes that held the empire together. Many historians unofficially call it World War Zero. Even Churchill said that it was the First World War. The 7 Years' War officially ran from 1756 to 1763. But the North American fighting began in 1754. The U.S. State Department describes the French and Indian War as the North American conflict inside the larger imperial war between Britain and France, known as the 7 Years' War. That alone tells you why this war is so easy to misunderstand. Depending on where you live, you learn a completely different version of it. We Americans were taught that it was the French and Indian War, a prelude to the Revolutionary War, where Washington ignited the war by warning the French to evacuate the Ohio River Valley. Fort Necessity, Fort Duquesne, the natives, it's all wrapped up in an American context. We were never taught about all the other countries fighting. Europeans, I'm told, learn it as the war involving Prussia, Austria, France, Britain, Russia, and the shifting alliance system. The Anglo-Prussian Alliance, Great Britain, Prussia, and Hanover, and the anti-Prussian coalition, France, Austria, Russia, Sweden, and Saxony. And similarly to the US, the war sows the seeds of the French Revolution. I'd imagine people studying India may see it through the rise of the British East India Company. But all of these are not separate stories. They are chapters in the same global conflict, a book of war. The prologue to the Marne, the Somme, the insanity-causing drumfire and screaming itch of trench madness. The 7 Years' War was not one war in one place. It was a world system starting to go to war with itself. And as we Americans learned, one of the strangest parts of the story is that a young George Washington helped light the fuse. In 1754, Washington led a surprise attack on a small French fort at Jumonville Glen. Mount Vernon's historical account says that the attack, followed by Washington's surrender at Fort Necessity, helped spark the French and Indian War, which was part of the larger imperial conflict between Britain and France. Think how insane that is. A skirmish in the Ohio country becomes a war in India, in Europe, in the Caribbean, everywhere. That is why this war feels modern to us. It shows that by the mid-1700s, empires were already networked together. They took their regional European scuffles and caused it to bleed over, literally, into the rest of the world. A border dispute in North America could affect strategy in Europe. A battle in Germany could shape what happened in Canada. A naval victory in the Atlantic could decide whether Britain or France could reinforce India. This is the 7 Years' War, a prototype, V1, for later world wars. In North America, it was the French and Indian War, Britain and France fighting over territory, trade forts, alliances with native nations, and control of the interior of the continent. Manifest destiny wasn't an American concept. It was already the gleam in the eye of the European colonial powers.
For how much money? They gonna take it from you when they want.
In Europe, it was a massive power struggle. Britain and Prussia were aligned against France, Austria, Russia, Saxony, Sweden, and others. In India, it became part of the struggle for dominance between the British and French imperial systems. The Battle of Plassey in 1757, fought by the British East India Company against the Nawab of Bengal as French allies, eventually helped make Britain the dominant economic and military power on the Indian subcontinent. This sets the stage for everything we see now: India, Pakistan, Churchill, Gandhi. History is never dead. It is in the veins of the living. Every decision in the present is made with the context of the past. It doesn't die. In the Caribbean, the war was about sugar, ports, ships, and money. This is the original Taiwan with its semiconductors, the crown jewel of the world economy: sugar. Because in the 1700s, Caribbean sugar islands could be more economically valuable to European empires than vast stretches of mainland territory. These were not video game side quests. These were among the richest prizes in the world. The main game, the main storyline. So when people call this the First World War, they do not mean every person on Earth was involved. They mean that everyone is affected. This ain't regional. This is global. A normal European war might be fought over a border. The 7 Years' War was fought over the actual system itself, global hegemony, the future and fortune's clothing. Who would dominate North America? Who would control the Atlantic? Who would shape the future of India? Who would command the sea lanes? Who would have the money to keep fighting? That is why the war spread so widely. The American Revolution Institute notes that beyond the North American theater, battles took place in Africa, the Caribbean, India, and on the oceans between them. The war was not global by accident, like you could say about other conflicts, like the Napoleonic Wars, or even the American Civil War. It was global because Britain and France were global, the OG globalists. Their empire had colonies, trading posts, navies, alliances, chartered companies, and financial interests spread across the world. So when they fought each other, they fought everywhere their empires and systems touched. That is exactly what later world wars would look like. The 7 Years' War ended in 1763 with the Treaty of Paris and the Treaty of Hubertusburg. The Treaty of Paris ended the French and Indian War, the 7 Years' War, between Britain and France and their allies. Under its terms, France gave up its territories in mainland North America, which effectively removed the foreign military threat to the British colonies there. That was enormous. France lost Canada. Britain gained massive territory. In Europe, the settlement was less dramatic territorially, especially compared to the colonial world. But globally, the war marked a major shift toward British dominance outside Europe. This is another reason the war deserves the World War Zero moniker. A treaty ended it. It rearranged the entire future. The best part of history is often the irony, and the irony is, Britain won the war, but victory helped create the next crisis for it. The war gave Britain enormous territorial gains in North America, but it also created disputes over frontier policy and the cost of the war. The U.S. State Department says those disputes helped lead to colonial discontent and ultimately to the American Revolution. That is one of the most important historical dominoes in the modern world. Britain defeats France in a global imperial war. Britain now has a larger empire to manage and a huge war debt. Britain tries to make the American colonies help pay for imperial defense. This war burned through our war chests. We cannot afford your defense. Pay up. The colonies resist, and the American Revolution begins. So the 7 Years' War is not just important because of what it was. It is important because of what it unleashed. No 7 Years' War, no same American Revolution as we know it. No same American Revolution, no same modern world. Everything would look different. I guess that's the other irony of history, too. But was the 7 Years' War truly the first world war? Let's be honest, it's not like World War I or World War II. It was not industrialized total war. It did not mobilize entire societies in the same way. It did not have machine guns. It did not have trenches, tanks, aircraft, or mass propaganda on the scale of the 20th century. Side note, how effective is propaganda when it takes months to reach its intended targets? But if a world war means a war between great powers, fought across multiple continents and oceans, with consequences for the global balance of power, then yes, the 7 Years' War has a serious claim. It was the first war where the map of the world itself is like the battlefield. Unfurl a map of the entire Earth, put pins on the globe, because World War Zero zooms way out. Look down on your navies, look down at the battles happening here and there across oceans of blood. The different languages hoarse in the throat as they tell their men to have no fear. Look down at global empire and weep. For now the world will know the misery of world war.